This meeting will come to order. This is the, I believe now, fourth meeting of the fifth meeting of the Transportation Commission for October 2025. Can we please get a roll call?
Kopic.
Here.
Connell. Here. Volin.
What?
Volin.
Here.
Drummy.
Here.
Flaherty.
Here.
Davis. Here. Strasburg.
Here.
We have a quorum. We'll now read the agenda. We'll have approval of minutes. Excuse me. We will have reports and communications from commissioners and staff, including administrative updates, update on 180-day orders, a fatal crash report, a report on outdoor dining in the downtown corridor, and a report on the Summit District PUD and improvements in transportation therein. We'll have two cases, TCI 2510, Matlock Heights parking restrictions, and TCI 2511, North Walnut and Blue Ridge intersection area improvements. We'll go to discussion of topics not on the docket. We'll go to general public comment on items not on the docket, and then we'll adjourn. Let's start with the approval of minutes. Do we have any minutes to approve?
Yes, we have the September 15th, 2025 meeting minutes.
We have a motion for approval of the minutes.
I move the minutes be approved.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any comments, changes, or amendments to the minutes? From my right? From my left? Seeing none, let's go to a vote. Do we have to do a roll call vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. The minutes for September 15th are approved. Let's now go to reports from commissioners. Would any commissioner like to make a report about anything in particular? Mr. Strasburg.
Yes, I live in the Park Ridge neighborhood, and we recently had the ribbon cutting for an updated greenway and traffic calming that goes through there. And I just wanted to highlight that as a successful collaboration between the city staff and the residents. The staff came out multiple times, listened to feedback, were responsive, and created something that I believe the neighborhood is happy with, works well for us, but it also took into the account the overall city network and is consistent with, has elements that are consistent with how greenways are done throughout the neighborhood. So highlighting that as success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strasburg. Anybody else to my right with a report? To my left? I just have two items. One is, in reading the packet for this month, I thought it would be good to just point out that anyone who observes our proceedings or anyone who has a point to make about transportation in Bloomington at all is strongly encouraged to file a U report. That is how we're planning to process requests for inquiries of any kind. And anyone is welcome to do it. The trick is that it's not actually called U report on the site. It just says report something. But the URL is bloomington.in.gov/U report. So if you are a little confused by the page you're using, it's a generic page for all city reports. But this is the procedure through which the commission will entertain any inquiries that might become the subject of items on our agenda. The other thing I wanted to call to our attention is that the Safe Streets for All plan that the city adopted last November is something that sort of needs to be tracked. And I think it's incumbent upon this commission, as the inheritor of the Traffic Commission's obligations, to be aware of the plan and to follow along its implementation over the next few years. So I wanted to call attention to Safe Streets for All plan, and specifically that I I think every member of the commission should be at least keeping it in the back of their minds, if not actually referring to it once in a while, since that's one of the primary missions of the commission. With that, let's now go to reports from staff. Do we have any administrative updates, and who will be presenting first?
Yeah, I believe that'll be me.
Okay. Ms.
Sorry.
Bolton.
Part of the effort in putting together the commission has involved trying to improve upon our internal processes for documenting what's going on the staff level in terms of preparing materials and making changes to commission documents over time. As part of that effort, I've developed a change log, which I hope will help clarify exactly what kinds of decisions are being made at the staff level with respect to changes in formatting and the tracking of cases and the like. This change log is, currently a draft, and I've provided 2 versions of it and sort of attached to the report. The first is sort of like an overview where we're sort of providing a summary description of the decision, giving documenting who proposed the decision or made the suggestion, documenting whether or not the decision was implemented as part of our ongoing policies and procedures. And there's this approval category, which I'm less okay with, but it was part of the template, so here we are. Perhaps it will help provide some transparency into who is actually implementing these decisions at the material level. The detailed change log, which follows, is where I'm trying to provide some very specific notes. It's probably a level of detail that most people won't be inspired by necessarily or appreciate, but just in the purposes of clarity, this is sort of where we're at. The ID number is, all of this is being entered in manually. It is a Google Drive spreadsheet to date. But part of this is also sort of like preparing us for an inevitable shift to using another database structure for tracking commission activities, the Tyler Technologies EPL system, which I'll be able to provide another update at our next meeting for, because the contents of that meeting I had with ITS was very recent. I wasn't able to incorporate it into our packet for this month. But if you have any questions about my report, I will field them.
Any questions on administration of the commission from members? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation. Let's go now to an update on 180-day orders. I believe that's Andrew Seaboard, Director of Engineering. Mr. Seaboard, hello.
Good evening, Andrew Seaboard, City Engineer. Just wanted to continue my effort to keep the commission updated on 180-day orders. Since our last meeting, 3 new orders have been issued. The first 2 are hopefully items that are familiar to you. We discussed them at our last meeting. One dealing with clarifying some on-street parking on North Illinois Street between 12th and 15th. That's been in place now. And then we also more recently updated the time limit of limited parking on West 8th Street between Rogers and Fairview from 2 hours to 4 hours. So both those items we discussed at our last meeting. Maybe a new thing for the commission is the 3rd new item, which is stop control at the Prow and Acuff Road intersection. This was essentially a result of a new development that's under construction. And as a result of that development, they essentially turned what was once a curve in a road into a 3-leg intersection, and as a result, required putting in a stop sign on the top of the T or the minor intersection. So that recently opened up, and so we had to do a 180-day order to get that in place. Beyond those 3 new ones, I was required to extend 3 other ones. Just quickly, one dealt with the loading zones adjacent to Kirkwood Avenue, some new loading zones that we implemented, and then others a result of parking and stop control things in the Hopewell area, Hopewell East and along First Street. So those have been extended, and I'm happy to answer any questions the commission has.
Thank you, Mr. Sewar. Are there any questions on 180-day orders to my left? To my right? Seeing none, thank you for that. Let's move now to the fatal crash report.
Yeah, I'm going to quickly try to share my screen, put together a little presentation. Okay, so just wanted to provide this commission a report on a recent fatal crash, and I think just to set some groundwork for this, I've been doing this since late 2021 when the Traffic Commission passed a resolution essentially requesting or directing the city engineer, the director of the department, to provide a report on all fatal crashes to that commission. In my staff report, I want to note that was in their packet, I had an error that it said I reported on 4 fatal crashes. There were actually 5 fatal crashes that I provided updates to that Traffic Commission on since 2021. So just in the spirit of that resolution, that really predated the city council and the city's adoption of Resolution 24-07, which is essentially our goal to have 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries on the city's roads by 2039. So I mentioned the Safe Streets for All action plan, and this resolution really led to that, or was a part of that process. So just the spirit of, we don't want these crashes, but what we want to reflect on them and make sure the community is aware of them. And then you mentioned the SS4A plan that was adopted. One of the action items within that plan deals with essentially our procedure for analyzing these and providing reports. While we're not able to implement all of that action item, a component of that is essentially me doing this right now to give you that update on this fatal crash. Just to help in the context of reviewing fatal crashes, I think I did this with the Traffic Commission, and I might not go into all the details in future meetings, but really wanting to highlight the Federal Highway Administration's safe system approach. The idea here is that if we really want to reach 0 fatalities, they developed this framework to really think through things. So there are essentially a set of principles that are on the outside of this graphic. So those really form the basis of our approach to safety. So the ideas are death and serious injuries are unacceptable. Humans make mistakes. Humans are vulnerable. Responsibility is shared. Safety is proactive. And redundancy is crucial. So then on the inside of the circle are the elements. These are the things that are required to make our commitment to Vision Zero happen. So those include safe road users, safe speeds, safe vehicles, safe roads, and post-crash care. Another graphic that I really like to steal or borrow from Federal Highway Administration is this. It really essentially captures that no single element can really create a safe system. It takes them all in pair and in combination. But when you really combine these, it just really reduces your risk of having these types of crashes. So I think it just does a good job trying to capture that. So to get to the fatal crash that did happen this year, the crash happened on Thursday, July 3rd, just before 4th of July, between the noon and 1 o'clock hour in the afternoon. It was a nice day. This was an intersection-related crash, so it dealt with the intersection of Bloomfield and Landmark Avenue. It involved a westbound motorcyclist and an eastbound to northbound SUV, so essentially a motorcycle going through the intersection, and then a turning vehicle onto Landmark going the opposite direction. The motorcycle operator, per records, was seen essentially driving past queued cars, crossing the double yellow line in a movement that wouldn't be expected, likely as the light was starting to change. and they crashed into the S-turning SUV. You can see that motorcyclist passed away on August 22nd, so not immediate, but was very seriously injured and ultimately passed away over a month after the crash. So just to quickly look at the intersection and to focus on what's going here. So this is an aerial overview of the intersection. Landmark is the top of the intersection, the north leg. It's just a T intersection with a driveway on the south side, and you've got Bloomfield running, I'll call it east-west in the area. One through lane in each direction with some turn lanes. You also see a Google Street View image that is looking west at the intersection. So essentially the area the motorcyclist this was their view. As they approach the intersection, Bloomfield here is a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit facility. The lanes are roughly 10 feet wide. The road is in good condition, partially because we did recently improve this intersection in 2019. You can see some new curb ramps, crosswalk markings, new signal infrastructure. The intersection geometry there, especially on the northwest corner, does look very different as a result of the project as well. Bloomfield is the major road here. Just keeping in mind the safety action plan, Bloomfield as a corridor is identified as a high priority corridor. Landmark isn't, but Bloomfield is a high priority. And the intersection itself is classified as a medium priority intersection. Not focusing on the specifics of the crash, but just looking at the history there. Over the last 5 years, there were 17 reported crashes at this intersection. The majority or the most common crash were rear ends. That's pretty common at busy intersections that are signalized. There were some turning and angle crashes. Of course, the one fatal crash and some other injury crashes as well, but mostly property damage only. We also did observe a pattern of 2 bicycle crashes, essentially 2 path users going eastbound, colliding or being hit by southbound right-turning vehicles. So those are just things to be aware of at that intersection as well. So I think just wanted to provide that update. Happy to answer any questions that the commission has. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seabour. Are there questions for Mr. Seabour about fatal crashes? Mr. Drummy.
How do you guys gather your information regarding the crash? And for example, in this circumstance, the motorcyclist died several months later. So how did it get identified as a fatal crash?
Yeah, a lot of our crash information comes from the police report that is generated by our officers. And then as there are updates, they will typically update those logs, and I've got staff that track that. So sometimes, like after a crash, a common thing might be, or serious crashes, they'll do like blood alcohol testing, and that isn't immediately known, so they'll update the records in the future. And so we're just tracking that over time.
Further questions from my right? Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you. The past resolution from the Traffic Commission and the city engineer's practice with respect to fatal crashes had been on my mind as we transitioned to the Transportation Commission. So having not even brought it up, I appreciate that you brought it to us. And I assume then that's your intent, is to continue that process with this commission?
It is, yes. And just on that, I know one of the, I don't know if you were going to go here or not, but that resolution asked for me to specifically look at a few elements of these crashes. Certainly open to discussing that type of thing with this commission if there's interest. Some of those questions, as I went through it over the years, were just hard to define, like how broad or how big do you think? But anyways, I don't know if that's where you're going or not. But
maybe, yeah. I think a question is whether or not we should adopt a similar resolution formally, so it's actually this commission as opposed to just adopting a past practice. Might help for the sake of continuity, establishing a record of our own of why we want to hear about this. And that might be an opportunity to make some adjustments as well and reference the Safe Streets for All action plan, which did not exist at that time. So that might, provide an occasion to revisit some of those questions about scope and what it is we'd like to hear about when we do hear these reports. Would you be open to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Without it, I'd want to give reports like this, but certainly open to further dialogue. And that resolution was generated by a commissioner, and happy to work with this commission or members of it to draft something going forward.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's safe to say that barring any action otherwise, that we've inherited the work of all three commissions, and that whatever resolutions they had active, we have an obligation to follow till we change them. So it might be good to have an administrative meeting where we check in with practices you were accustomed to with the other commissions, and just, then we can put on the agenda items that really should be declarations of this new commission. So if that's okay with staff.
Yeah, happy
we can plan that
to
afterwards.
meet offline and do that.
Further questions from Mr. Seabour on the fatal crash report? To my left? Okay. I got one, I think, maybe two. How many of the fatalities that have happened since 2021 involved pedestrians as opposed to drivers or passengers of cars?
So there were 5, now 6 fatal crashes since I've been going through this.
This decade, basically.
There was one pedestrian that it's coming off the top of my mind, and one scooter rider off the top of my mind.
I seem to recall, though, that there were no fewer than 3 fatalities on East 3rd Street in the past 5 years that involved pedestrians. One was hit by a bus at the bus stop, one was hit by an SUV on 3rd and Washington, and one was hit at the corner of 3rd and Indiana. Is that not right?
Those were prior to the Traffic Commission's resolution, and I think when I was not a city employee, so I can't speak to those.
Because I thought they were all since 2021. So maybe I'll have to go back and check the dates. But yeah, so, okay, but of the ones you're familiar with, pedestrians were involved in 2.
If you consider a
6.
scooter
Yeah,
a pedestrian, yes.
a non-car driver or passenger was one of the people involved in the accident, in the crash, rather.
Correct.
Okay. The other question is, I think last meeting we talked about, and I think it was mentioned in the minutes, the county level crash dashboard. Is that site up?
Yes, it is.
And is it linked on the Transportation Commission webpage?
It will be by the end of the meeting if it's not.
Okay, that's great. Last question I have is, in the entire experience that anybody on staff has had working for the city, do we know of any crashes that involve something that other than an automobile? Have there been any fatalities or injuries caused by bicyclists or scooter riders against other bicyclists, scooter riders, or pedestrians that you know of?
It's a tricky question to answer because it gets into defining terms and what is a fatal crash. Going by memory, which is always a risky thing to do, I think most crashes that are officially would show up in these databases involve a vehicle by nature. So I don't think if it involved a scooter crashing into a scooter that would pop up in this data set.
Okay, so you're saying that a scooter or a bicycle caused injury would not even show up in transportation databases?
I would want to verify, but my recollection is that it involves an automobile, and that, yeah.
Interesting. All right, that's a question I'm going to want to follow up with in the future. All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Stossberg.
I looked for weird crashes in the data too, and I did find a crash that involved a pedestrian and a deer, but I don't think the pedestrian crashed into the deer. I think maybe somehow a car managed to hit them both at the same time.
Huh.
So, I don't know.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Thanks for the report, Mr. Seaborn.
Absolutely.
Let's move on now to a report on outdoor dining in the downtown corridor. Who's here to present? I believe I see Ms. Mottinger.
Yeah, good evening, Commissioners. I'm Chaz Mottinger, Special Projects Manager in the Economic and Development Department, Economic and Sustainable Development Department. So I'm here to provide a brief update on the 2025 outdoor dining program. So earlier this year, City Council adopted Ordinance 2005-02 to establish a reoccurring seasonal outdoor dining program. This ordinance repealed and replaced the previous version, reinstating both the Parklet and Kirkwood Avenue conversion. It suspends certain provisions of the Bloomington Municipal Code to facilitate the use of public right-of-way for outdoor seating. The conversion affects East Kirkwood Avenue blocks 100 to 500. Each year, the program's guidelines are reviewed and approved by the Board of Public Works. For 2025, the outdoor dining season runs April 4th to November 10th. The Parklet participants are Orbit Room, Metalworks, which is now closed, Crazy Horse, and Buffalo's. The Kirkwood participants are Uptown Cafe, Farm, Village Deli, Nick's English Hut, and Lenny's Brew Pub. So the update, the 2025 program has experienced mixed results. Under this new ordinance, blocks 100 through 500 on East Kirkwood were closed to vehicular traffic during the program period, regardless of whether participating businesses utilized outdoor dining. The intent was to encourage community use and street activation. However, the anticipated engagement has been limited due to issues such as understaffing, lack of necessary budget, and policy issues. In addition, it soon became clear that the 200 block needed to remain open for the season due to access concerns from nearby First Christian Church, whose alleyway serves as a primary entry and parking area and cannot be accessed when the block is closed. The 100 block only had a half closure due to similar issues with an alleyway and accessibility. So Public Works, which oversees special event implementation of Kirkwood, has faced challenges managing these closures due to limited capacity. It's basically a lot of work for them. In particular, the closure of the 300 block, where no businesses participated in outdoor dining, was widely viewed by community members and business owners as underutilized and visually unappealing based on ongoing and anecdotal feedback. Following the Hoops event on October 2nd, this block was reopened to traffic. There is also consideration to public safety when viewing the Kirkwood conversion in this manner. The Parklet component of the program saw improvements this year. Several businesses invested in raised platform decks that align with the sidewalk, enhancing accessibility and aesthetics. Staff anticipates the program guidelines to be updated for 2026 to require all parklets to have these raised platforms. One participating business closed during the season, which uncovered a series of issues that are not currently outlined in the ordinance relating to abandoned property and communications. Prior to the start of this season, staff identified and installed 6 additional accessible parking spaces in proximity to the Kirkwood corridor. In response to frequent reports of short-term parking in front of the bollards, partially blocking lanes of traffic, staff also installed 2 loading zones on both Dunn Street and Washington Street. City staff are currently collecting updated feedback from both business owners and the public to help inform future program adjustments. The planning department will also conduct a Kirkwood corridor study in 2027. So thank you. I welcome your questions or feedback. And just so you know, up there is a map of the program this year. You can see the blocks that are closed. And we made this to also show where accessible parking is and to give the public an idea on where they can go, where the parking garages are, and the new loading zones and whatnot. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mottinger. Are
Thank
there
you.
questions from commissioners? To my right. Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. Maybe not a question for Ms. Mottinger, actually. There was a reference at the end of your report about 2027 planned corridor study on Kirkwood. I wanted to ask about the scope of that study. What stretch of Kirkwood, as well as what is like the focus? Like, I'm recalling in particular that the transportation plan calls for a design charrette and similar process to explore shared street design of Kirkwood, I think roughly between Walnut and Indiana, but maybe that would vary some. I wonder if Kirkwood also has a corridor study slated that might be longer and more like related to safety versus design. So I'm curious, even though those are related, curious about that. and how that might interact with this program also.
Yeah, there will be more information coming about that. I don't have all the particulars. It's not in our department. I don't know if Ryan wants to answer it, but I'm going to pass the mic to him.
Yeah, you nailed it. There will be a design charrette style corridor study. It'll be triggered by the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan. So it will incorporate that. I expect it will go all the way up to the B line, but we're open to negotiation on that. But certainly the stretch from Walnut to Indiana. And yes, it'll focus both on design and safety improvements. So it'll be slightly unique in that regard from other corridor studies you have seen or will see.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flaherty. Questions for Ms. Moninger to my left? No. Okay. Thank you for the report. I guess the only question I would have is, do you already know what recommendations staff will make for next year? Will the 300 block stay open next year, do you think?
We're not ready to, we're still looking into it right now. Some things have come up, like with public safety, so hopefully we will know the answer soon, but we're still very much getting feedback about that and all
I
the
know
blocks.
that in the news you talked about how you kept that block closed until after the Hoosier Hoops event on October 2nd. How many other events, I mean, I know that Taste of Bloomington used that block. How many other events took advantage of that closed space this year?
I would have to double check with Public Works, but I believe some of the festivals did, but there's like 5 big ones per year. I would have to check. Not that many. So for instance, the public library was supposed to do a dirt fest on that block in, I think, June or July. That didn't end up happening because it was too sunny on the block, and they ended up doing it on their own property. So as like smaller activation events that utilize the block, I don't really think there were any, except for, I think some of the larger festivals, like maybe Handmade Market or something, or like Pride used the block.
Is it onerous to expect Public Works to just close the block for an event? Like, is that hard? Or could the block just be closed right before and after an event and just open it the rest of the time?
Yeah, it depends on like special events, and they have to go through a process to get that okayed. But Jane, do you want to say something? But they have, so for Public Works to do it, they have to approve. The Board of Public Works and staff goes through the special events applications, and so if they would need to, so I guess the block was closed this year until recently. So, but yeah, normally what they would do, it'd have to be approved. The organizer would have to do all the right steps to make sure everything's safe and legal, and then, the Public Works crew would close the block.
It's just that council has approved the closure of the entirety of the street during the season.
Which is why it was
it seems like
closed.
that might be one less step. They shouldn't have to get, permission from Public Works to close the block if it's already supposed to be closed.
Yeah, so just some of what we saw this year in the memo, I briefly mentioned it, why activation didn't happen. It's staff and money and also policy issues, so I kind of hinted at that. But yeah, it is a little difficult for people to potentially activate the block, so that's something that would need to be looked at.
There are, Jane Cooper-Smith, Director of Economic and
Thank you.
Sustainable Development. Thanks. Nice to see everyone. I think that I've completely lost my train of thought now. There are requirements that need to be demonstrated via the application process, like insurance, safety plans, trash plans. So everyone will continue to have to go through a thorough use of the public right-of-way process. I think Ms. Moninger's presentation is more just an overview. We want the transportation to be familiar with what has happened so far and where the program is right now. And we're committed to implementing it to our best ability and making sure next year that we have really activated spaces. So I think that's kind of why you're driving at that point.
Yeah, I'm just curious as to what, if any, conclusions you've come to so far, that's all.
Yeah.
So thank you. We appreciate the feedback. Any last questions or comments? Thanks again for the report.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's move on now to the final report listed here, the Summit District PUD and improvements to transportation within it. Andrew Seabour.
Thanks. Did you pull up the map that's in the packet? Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to provide the Transportation Commission an update on a major development that was approved ultimately by City Council last May. It was in the news. I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, but it's called the Summit District. It's in the southwest corner of the city. Pulling up a map here, you can see Bloomfield Road again is that diagonal running road on the north side. Weimer is a major north-south road that just is immediately west of this development site, and that development site is generally bound by the dashed blue in this map, and TAP is further to the south. But this development is potentially going to be really large. It was approved to be up to, it's about 140 acres. It could include up to 4,250 new housing units, some commercial space, and a hotel. It's expected to take a number of years for this development site to be built. But just as a part of the development process and approval process for this project, the development team did prepare a traffic impact analysis that essentially studied the amount of traffic that a development of this size would create and the impact it would have to the city's transportation system. And so in your packet, there's the official traffic study and then a supplemental memo that went along with those. The timing of these were not, they really weren't done being reviewed, done being developed. At the time, this was all approved by the city council, and so there was a condition that essentially said the developer is required to work with the city on an MOU to outline off-site transportation improvements that would be needed. And so this is just my effort wanting to share some of this information with this commission. And essentially, to summarize, there's a series of 8 transportation improvements that we're really zeroing in on. The details of what those improvements are and their exact timing are very much still in flux, but trying to prioritize them at least. And in the memo, I mentioned that maybe the first improvement that we would see is dealing with the single-lane culvert crossing on Weimer Road. That may or may not be needed depending on how quickly the next phase of improvements are built. So the next phase of things that we're really looking at is essentially an extension of Vanguard Way. I guess you can see it on one map, but it's hard with the text on another. But Weimer Road essentially runs through a floodplain on the southern half of it. The city's transportation plan calls a project to build a new connection identified in that red line furthest west here. So essentially rerouting Weimer Road into what is Vanguard Parkway. And then the vision is that Weimer Road that is no longer used for automobiles could become a trail type facility. And then along with that new realignment, there's also needed improvements identified essentially at each end of that new Weimer Road Vanguard Parkway facility. So at the south end at TAP, and then at the north end at the Bloomfield and Weimer Road intersection. So those are sort of the first larger bucket of improvements that we'd likely be seeing to support this development, but also to support the community and implement things that are in the transportation plan. The next sort of batch of priority projects would be, and these are all on the map, there's some dots trying to illustrate them, but it's 4 intersection improvements. One is the Bloomfield Road, Allen Street intersection. Another is Bloomfield Road and the 2nd Street where it sort of transitions there at Adams. And then Weimer Road and Sudbury Drive, that's probably the most defined scope. That's essentially adding a left turn lane on Weimer Road and then on the opposite side because we would be seeing more traffic on Sudbury Drive. And then Adams Street and Allen Street intersection improvements as well. So those are the focus areas that we're really looking at. I don't know the result, but I know today at the city's redevelopment commission meeting, they were starting to talk about potentially seeing if the RDC would be willing to earmark some funds to start the design of some of these things. I think that's what I wanted to share, and I know that was really high level and quick. I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission has. at this time. As these projects move forward, I would certainly expect more details and more information. At this point, it's just a status update on what we're looking at.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there questions for it? Commissioners on my left. Mr. Kopic.
Andrew, so at TAP and Vanguard, I guess, is that going to be a roundabout in there then? Because of proximity to the intersection with the signal?
Yeah, I think we'd be looking at options at many of these intersections. So Tappan and Vanguard, we would look at a roundabout. We'd also look at a signal. I think many years ago, the city was looking at doing a roundabout there, and there is more right-of-way because that was a part of the plan. So I think that's a very real possibility at that intersection.
Thanks.
Questions from my left? From my right? Mr. Flaherty.
I think the previous question sort of illustrated what I was going to ask about, but I assume these are all essentially projections based on study, but in each case would be subject to analysis to justify an improvement. Like this isn't a plan for like, we're going to do these things because we anticipate X. Rather, it's like, see how the development unfolds. When justified, we'll look at these particular anticipated projects or other needs and then move forward.
Yeah, I think there really is some phasing here. I think those earlier improvements to Vanguard and either end some people would feel are very needed today from a safety perspective and just a part of the transportation plan. Those further ones out, I think, are further out and more subjective to what things happen.
Thank you.
Yep.
Further questions? I wanted to ask about Vanguard Parkway. I'm looking at page 047 in the packet, which is a map, this map, but depicted by the consultant. Is Vanguard Parkway going to get built by the developer or by the city?
I think at this point, we're just saying it's a facility that we want to see built. How and when and those details are to be worked out.
Because I also see that there's quite a few roads to be built. I mean, yeah, that's the page. The Vanguard Parkway is red on this map, but the internal roads that would be extended, Sudbury and Adams, are beige. And so I wonder if those designate ones that the developer will build.
Yeah, I think
they will.
Conceptually, the beige ones we're seeing here are more like internal to the development, and I'd say much more likely the developer would be building. Some of these off-site things, I would assume the city will be building because they are on city assets. They're not, the developer doesn't own the adjacent property, but what is the funding mechanism and the partnership there is to be determined.
Well, I just didn't know if as a condition of the PUD, it involved them, because we've had other PUDs that involved off-site transportation improvements. I'm thinking of 19th Street and the big developments over there. That one developer funded an actual sidewalk all the way well past the development. So has that already been decided? Do you know?
I think the details of the funding and the partnership, I think, are still just ongoing. I think from at least my perspective, and I think the commission's is identifying what improvements are needed and by when, so we're not playing catch-up. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay.
The other question I have is about the nature of the internal grid, such as it is. It doesn't seem like much of a grid. And I'm wondering, do they know yet, like, are they going to build any streets that are not marked on this map, however small?
Yeah, this map actually, as we're looking, looks pretty silly to me and is different than what the Plan Commission and City Council approved, but there are additional streets. I think the main thing here I want to highlight is that Adams Street would connect. That's a very meaningful connection to the
Right.
community and to this development, and that would connect to Sudbury Drive as well. So those are required because they're a part of the transportation plan and would serve the development and the community at large.
Because I'm a little concerned about the relative lack of grid that I see here, that I'm anticipating that it's not going to be a particularly, like just one way in and out. And so with the number of people who are planning to make their homes here, I'm wondering how traffic's going to be as a result.
Yeah, I think these are the major roads. I think there are some environmental features and other limitations that limit how much additional connections can be made.
Very good, thank you. Any further questions from commissioners? Seeing none, thank you for the report.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to cases. We have 2 transportation inquiries on the agenda. Shall we start with TCI 2510? A question for staff, do these need to be introduced, or can they we just begin presenting them?
You can just go. Yeah.
Okay, let's start with TCI 2510, parking restrictions in Matlock Heights. Who is here to present?
I'm Caleb Throckmorton, the Matlock Heights Neighborhood Association president. I don't know how specific you want me to be, but we are just asking for, half of our neighborhood already has no parking this side on all of the streets, but the other half does not. With the success of the athletic team, there you can see the photos, our neighborhood just gets inundated with cars parking, and then they get stuck. The fire department came and saw and said that we should have the no parking signs on one side of the street. So we are requesting that on East Glendora, North Barbara, North Fritz, North Laverne, and East Gilbert. So I know we did this last year, so this is just the second time.
Well, you did this in front of the predecessor commission,
Yeah.
and this is a new commission, so
Yeah.
we're happy to entertain the question. Does that complete your,
Yeah, that's essentially all we're asking, yeah.
okay. Let's hear a report from staff.
For transportation inquiries, we could try to keep it brief to let the inquirer.
Could I ask both of you to use your microphone, get closer to your
Yes.
microphones? It's hard to.
Sorry about that. Okay, so we try to keep it brief for staff. We just do some background information. We received, Planning and Transportation and Public Works both received a number of U reports and other reports from this neighborhood. And so we've addressed it to the best of our abilities in the short term, but we have not come up with a long-term solution. So that's what we're kind of asking this body to look at. You can see that Public Works kind of came up with a short-term solution of placing temporary signage and doing the best to enforce that they could there. But again, that's not a long-term solution. So that is why this is coming back from the Parking Commission now to the Transportation Commission in hopes that we figure something out. There is, for transportation inquiries, this is our first one, sorry. So there are a couple of actions that you can take. I just want to make note of that before you dive into a discussion. But you can determine that no further action is warranted at this time. You can request that staff and or the inquirer find additional information or do an additional study, or you can request that a future petition or resolution addressing the issues raised be placed on a subsequent agenda. So just wanted to highlight those since this is new to us.
Okay, so the decision before us is to either recommend that the neighborhood come with a petition, that we bring a resolution, or that, what was the third option?
Do nothing.
Or we but we can also request additional study or information, all right, or do nothing. So with that, let's open the floor to questions from commissioners for Matlock Heights. On my right? Mr. Connell.
Yeah, just, so.
Closer to the mic.
Bringing additional information, would that include a staff recommendation?
Yeah, if we were to elevate this, it would require staff to prepare a resolution. Yeah, yeah. Okay. On my left, Mr. Kopic, you have or Ms. Davis?
Is this just a problem on game days?
Yes, currently it has just been a game day issue. We do have people parking there for other sporting events, basketball games, and graduation, but that's, I mean, it's not 55,000 people like the football games are, so, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Kopic?
So what's, like say, the normal parking on there? Do the residents use the street?
Yes, it's a 1950s neighborhood, so everybody's got pretty good driveways. Most have garages. But yes, residents do park on the street, like people visiting residents and stuff like that. I did originally inquire about just game day only, no parking game day only signs on this side. So I don't know if that's still a possibility or not. So.
Further question, Mr. Kopic? Mr. Flaherty?
Thank you. One question is just how it's gone with the temporary measures that were referenced. Is that working effectively, something that we might consider making permanent via signage? How's it gone?
Yes, so currently people have been respecting the signs because we did do this last year too, after the homecoming game last year, and people were parking then just on the correct side of the streets. We have had issues of people parking the wrong direction on that side of the streets or under stop signs, stuff like that, but at least they have been respecting those orange temporary no parking signs.
Okay, so you mentioned when you came before the Parking Commission, one option that was discussed, or your recommendation at the time, was to make essentially those signs permanent, no game day parking this side of the street. Do you have a preference, or do your neighbors have a preference that you could speak to between that and a permanent no parking on, one side of these various streets?
Yeah, they certainly do prefer just for the game day signs, because like getting permanent no game day signs, because right now the neighborhood is actually taking in and putting out these signs that the city gave us.
Does staff have a perspective on how the temporary measures have gone and whether or not the best option is to just simply make that permanent? Or you're not ready for a recommendation yet? That's okay, it can be another meeting, I was just curious.
Yes, I don't believe we've had a final verdict from Public Works on how successful those have been yet.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Drummy?
I guess I'm confused, or I think I understand your presentation, but does the neighborhood, from your perspective, you want to move away from the temporary system you have now and move to something more permanent? Is that the request?
Yes, yeah. Right now, we have the orange temporary signs from the city, but whatever it is, it's 24 hours before the game time, the neighbors are having to put them out. And right now, we're actually just doing it, the neighborhood board. So we are requesting permanent ones on those side of the streets.
Thank you.
One question I have is it a matter of cost? Is cost one reason why the administration might be reluctant to put permanent signs out?
No, cost, as far as I understand it, Public Works' concern is not cost, it is enforcement. This is outside of their traditional enforcement zone, and so that puts the burdens more on the police department, which obviously they're busy on game days.
Yeah.
So that's, I believe, a large chunk. They're not here to back me up on that claim, but we'll make sure they're here for a future item.
Now, I remember reading in the report that when you all have seen a violation in the neighborhood, you were instructed to call 911. How has that gone for the neighborhood?
Well, we haven't had to do so since now that we have these signs. Like I said, I was going to say, so half of our neighborhood does already have the permanent signs. And
Has the what signs?
Has the permanent no parking this side signs. So half of our neighborhood is already covered. It's just the north half that doesn't have it. And so people respect those signs. Like, I know enforcement is an issue, but if the signs are there, it's less likely that the people are going to be parking where they shouldn't be. And that's what we've seen, even with the temporary signs, that people aren't parking in front of them. So it has helped, for sure.
Thank you. Any further questions? Second round? To my left? To my right, Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you. So if half the neighborhood already has permanent no parking this side of the street signs, I would assume that's also outside the range of typical Public Works parking enforcement rounds?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I've got one more question if there's nobody else. One argument I've always made for parking on one or both sides of the street is that it narrows the street effectively and slows traffic down. Couldn't it be seen as a benefit to have cars on the street? Can you talk a little bit about why it's an inconvenience or worse?
I'm sorry, I don't understand it.
In other words, the mere presence of parked cars on the street could serve to slow traffic down on the street. What do you say to that?
Our neighborhood doesn't really have any, other than East Glendora, straight through streets. So we don't really have like a speed problem. We do on Dunn, but that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the main issue is when they are parked on both sides, the emergency services vehicles couldn't get through. And on Barbara during the homecoming game last year, there was a truck with a travel trailer that just had to park in the middle of the street because it couldn't, there it is right there. He couldn't back up or go forward. He just got stuck, so he just stopped.
So it actually did impede the right-of-way altogether.
Oh, yeah. The street was closed for the game then.
Got it.
So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
All right, well, if there are no other questions in this round, we can go to public comment on the inquiry. Let's go to public comment. If you are going to speak to this issue, you can have a seat, sir, yeah. Please sign in before I recognize you, and you'll be limited to 3 minutes per turn. We're not doing direct dialogue or questions. We'll simply take your comment. Please keep your comments respectful. If you are on Zoom, you may use the raise hand function to be called on to speak. Is there anyone who would like to speak to this inquiry? Is there anybody online so far that you see, staff?
Just to repeat that, if you are online and would like to speak to this inquiry, please raise your hand and I will call on you. I'm not seeing anyone online. Iris is passing out a letter that we received just before the meeting started, so it was not included in the packet.
Is there anyone in chambers who would like to speak to this issue, this inquiry, TCI 2510 in Matlock Heights? Last call for public comment. We have a taker. Please sign in.
Just on this paper here?
Mm-hmm. And state your name and speak directly into the mic.
So I'm Becky Throckmorton. I also live in Matlock Heights. And we'll just say, since we had the temporary signs approved last year and then the games that we've had them for this year, the residents in the neighborhood have all come and personally expressed their gratitude for it. I do know that there was a safety issue that was noticed by the police chief, or the fire marshal, where they noted as well that it was a major concern, and they're actually the ones who had started the attention that we needed to have this put up as permanent signs. And so just wanted to express the neighbors' appreciation for having the temporary signs, and I think the need, if the football team particularly continues to do as well as they've done now, the need to have those signs just for safety for the public coming for game days, but also for the residents living in the neighborhood and any sort of emergency vehicle that may need to get in and out of the streets. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment on TCI 2510? Last call. Seeing none, we'll come back to the commission for further questions. Any second round of questions? I do have one question for the neighborhood. If you can come on up, yeah. IU used to be terrible at football, terrible. I don't think that stopped people from coming to the games, but it wasn't in quite the same numbers. Is this unique to IU's record-breaking run the past 2 years, or has this always been a problem that's only being exacerbated by their run?
So it has been a problem in the past, but usually for 2 games, when Ohio State comes or when Michigan comes, they travel. Illinois traveled really well this year. And so whenever a good team comes, it was a problem. But obviously, with IU being better, I mean, they're sold out.
It wasn't
now.
frequently enough to make a difference, but now it's every game.
Now it's every game, yeah. And I do know that they've already started talking about additional overhang on the stadium. So that's 10 or 15,000 more people. So,
Yikes.
yeah,
Okay.
so it's with no added parking, so.
Heard and understood. Thank you. Question from Mr. Strasburg.
Yeah, I just want to clarify permanent. Are you talking about permanently installed, like out on the street, or just higher quality signs that you can put out on game day and take back?
Oh, the permanent signs like we have on the other side of the neighborhood. The permanent no parking signs.
Yeah, so they're out on a post, they're all the time, no parking game day.
Yeah, yes, those. The current ones on the other side of the neighborhood are no parking this side all the time.
Oh, all
it's
the
not,
time.
they don't say game day.
Okay.
Okay. If there are no other questions, then we now go to debate. And the three options that we have are to say that no further action is warranted at this time, that we should have additional study or information, that we make that as a request from the commission, or that we request that either a petition from the neighborhood or a resolution from a commissioner be placed on a future agenda of the commission. So as you speak to the issue, please state which action, if any, you would prefer, because we have done a simple yes, no. Mr. Roebling.
Just a quick clarification. The petition would come from staff in this case. We would write it up to match whatever Title 15 or otherwise change with alongside the neighborhood. We would not ask the neighborhood to write it.
Right, but I mean, while you would create the petition, it would be initiated by an outside entity.
Sure, yes, sorry, thank you.
Okay, just trying to clarify it. Okay, with that, are there any comments from commissioners? To my right? Mr. Connell.
Yeah, I think I would like to see staff introduce for a future meeting a recommendation, or what are we calling it?
A petition.
Petition. A petition to have the permanent no parking signs installed in the area, consistent with the ones that are already in place. And that would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Connell. Mr. Flaherty?
I think I have the same mind. Maybe a clarifying question or two as well for staff. So petition would be staff brought, and a resolution would be commissioner sponsored or brought? Is that the only distinction, or are they used for different purposes?
Those are different purposes. The petition in this case would always be staff brought. It would be something that could be initiated by someone else, but for this, it would always be a petition that comes through staff rather than a resolution which is can come from outside, but often, or it can come from commissioners or staff, but doesn't necessarily include what is currently and used to be in Title 15.
Okay. For us to direct staff to prepare a petition, is that appropriate regardless of what staff thinks, or should that only be done when staff is in agreement that something is warranted? I was thinking if staff's in disagreement, that maybe a resolution is actually what's appropriate.
Great question. Yes, in that case, you could do a resolution, but in most cases, we are going to try to get in a place where staff is proposing a petition that we can support. We wouldn't try to leave it devoid of a resolution. Not that word resolution, but a solution.
Thank you. And then also, could this be accomplished through a 180-day order? And/or related follow-up, if we passed a petition advising this, the next step would be for Title 15 or maybe 12 amendment at the council. Is that right, City Council?
Yes, you have all the steps right. We could do a 180-day order if there was enough support here and the city engineer decided that that was appropriate. We could do that, and then this would come back as a petition, and then it would go on to council as a Title 15 amendment.
Okay, thank you.
To my left, start with Mr. Stossberg, then Ms. Davis.
I support that plan. One area is enforcement. It sounds like the people who come to see the games are largely compliant on the one hand, and then that this is not it's a relatively infrequent thing that comes up. It's more frequent now, but it might not always be that way. So it seems like enforcement might be sufficiently good.
Ms. Davis.
I'm not sufficiently up on the football schedule to know how much longer this is going to go on, but is there anything this season, what would get the neighborhood relief most quickly? Or it won't happen this season?
The neighborhood can confirm, Mr. Throckmorton can confirm, but Public Works has given them those temporary signs, and I believe those are working and will continue to work through the remainder of the season. We're aiming for a next year solution permanently.
Mr. Kopic?
Yeah, I would agree with what's previously been said about permanent signage to match the rest of the neighborhood, 180-day order if necessary.
Mr. Chummy, did you have anything?
No, I think it's a good idea and agree with that it should be done.
Okay. Well, this is the first time we're doing a so-called inquiry. This is a new commission. We've got a new process for handling requests like this. And it's, in my experience, the most formalized way that a member of the public has ever been able to petition a commission to take formal action. So I have to say that I'm in agreement with my colleagues after listening to the case presented. I mean, no one can be more shocked than me that to say that I believe that this will never not be a problem from now on. IU has leapt some kind of a broom or crossed some kind of a Rubicon. I don't know how you would characterize it, but what's that? Different dimension. It's in a different dimension. And this problem is not going to go away. Now, one thing that I have idly wondered about is should Matlock Heights consider an actual neighborhood parking zone, but it seems like they've made a case that it just doesn't rise to that level, that the signage they request is a reasonable request. And if it's not a matter of cost, which doesn't seem like it is, that it really is a good idea for us to at least take up as a petition. So with that, does someone want to make a recommendation? Or if there's any other further comment? Don't want to preclude any? If not, make a recommendation as to what action we should vote on. Make a motion, I should say. Mr. Flaherty.
I move that staff prepare a petition that makes permanent the emergency no parking on game day signs currently being utilized on an interim basis in Matlock Heights, And further, that the city engineer initiate a 180-day order to accomplish the same if he finds it prudent.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Connell. If there's no other comment, Mr.
I guess I
Drummond.
do have one comment. I think-
Y'all, we need to get closer to the mic.
I think
People need to hear you.
Did your proposal, was it consistent with the other signs in the neighborhood? Because you said on game days only, whereas the rest of the neighborhood is no parking this side Monday through Sunday. And it seems to me I'd be more in favor of uniformity than game day only one part. I don't imagine it's ever going to be an issue, but it just seems like, is there a reason to make a distinction, and was that intentional, Mr. Flaherty?
It was intentional. Good question. Through the questions for the petitioner or the member of the neighborhood bringing the request, I thought their desire was to have the the no game day only on the new signage that matches what's being done now, as opposed to Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday all times. So it was in line with what the neighborhood was recommending, I believe. But it's a good question. I don't know if staff has any concerns that they want to share about inconsistency among a set of signs in the neighborhood with respect to no parking signs for one side of the street.
Andrew Seabour, city engineer. I think it's a good question, one that I think I'd want to personally consider more and engage with our other city departments that aren't here tonight. And I guess I also just wanted to share an opinion that certainly open to doing a 180-day order for this, but I think my preference would be to bring this back with additional information to this commission, because there are some fundamental questions of things like which side of the street, and the question that we're talking about right now. So I think I would like that guidance, knowing we have a near-term fix for this season. I don't think we're in a rush, but maybe after the next meeting, being more open and comfortable with moving forward in that direction.
I could consider withdrawing the motion and making something less prescriptive, or I'm flexible.
I think this is our first time doing this, so let's just work through a little bit. All this is going to do is trigger a formal petition, a higher level thing. I can already see that during the discussion of that petition, we're going to ask a lot of these questions. And meanwhile, staff will have time to go over the details that they would prefer. All we're doing now is saying we do think that this case rises to the level of formal scrutiny, formal petition. And so, because I already have some questions about, I like game day because, yes, not as many people attend basketball games, but it still might be an issue during basketball games. We might find another word so that it even includes graduation. But it's clear that there's, stadium events or any kind of event in the stadium complex might be the right words to do. We have to figure it out. We don't have to figure it out now, okay? We just know we have to figure out that we think it should come back to us. So I think let's not worry too much about the detail, but if you want to reword your motion, this would be a good time to do it. Otherwise, let's just take a vote on it. Any further comments on the motion? So if not, we'll just, it doesn't matter, I don't think. On my left? Seeing none, let's have a roll call vote on TCI 2510, recommendation to bring it as a future petition.
Volin.
Yes.
Drummy.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Stossberg.
Yes.
Kopic.
Yes.
Connell.
Yes.
That passes 7-0. Thank you all for the presentation, and let's move on now to TCI 2511. This is a request from the Blue Ridge neighborhood for intersection improvements at Blue Ridge and North Walnut. Who is here to present this item?
I have James Ferguson online. He should be able to unmute here in just a second.
Very good. Mr. Ferguson, please start as soon as you're ready.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. Hello, and good evening. My name is James Ferguson. I am here representing petition which was presented to the Old Traffic Commission last year, which is representing, I think, close to 150 signatories at this point. We are requesting that the city make some improvements to the intersection of Blue Ridge Drive, or East Blue Ridge Drive, and North Walnut Street. The situation is a long-standing one. The traffic at this intersection on North Walnut Street has been consistently high speeds and even reckless at points, but it's been made much worse since the advent of Interstate 69. We have traffic moving at excessive speeds coming up the hill. I've personally clocked them at 60 miles an hour, which is just insane for that area. The traffic has become quite aggressive and reckless, going in both directions. There have been accidents. I filed with the city, and I believe the city should have on file police reports, accident reports from the 5 years prior to 2024. I'm sure the commission is probably better capable of getting more information on the long-standing part of this, but that was turned in last year with the original petition, and then last month at this commission's meeting, I turned in the most current version of the petition itself. So part of what's going on is that coming out of Blue Ridge Addition, the sight lines on North Walnut from our exit are quite bad. On one side, you're looking uphill, and on the other side, you're looking downhill with very limited visibility. And again, with the speeds that we are seeing people driving on this section of North Walnut, it makes it extremely dangerous to attempt to make a turn from our addition onto North Walnut Street, especially a left turn, which is having to cross both lanes of traffic. Now, I want to mention that planning and engineering, because they're doing resurfacing, have included part of our request for turn lanes to be added to this section of North Walnut Street, although we don't feel that just the addition of the turn lanes will be sufficient to address the actual conditions that exist here, and those being the speeds and the recklessness of the traffic going north and south on North Walnut Street. Therefore, we have requested and are requesting, and it is our understanding that after the review of the first presentation, it was determined that the crash data did not was not sufficient to warrant a light. Unfortunately, I'm not sure how many accidents and injuries have to occur before a light is considered a reasonable thing. We do understand that a light is not an inexpensive addition, although under the circumstances, we feel that it is the best solution to the situation that we are facing at this intersection. Our request is specifically for a sensor-activated stoplight, because we understand that North Walnut Street is a major thoroughway through the city and connecting to Interstate 69. and a censored light similar to the one that's on Liberty Drive and the Baxter Pharmaceutical parking lot, where it's activated when an automobile pulls up to the intersection. It starts the system of shutting down and the cross traffic so that the individuals can make safe turns out of that parking lot. We are seeking similar kind of addition to this intersection to make it both safer for residents of our community as well as visitors to the city who are at the city's visitor center and trying to make a left turn to go north. It's just as dangerous for them as it is for us. Maybe not quite, because the sightlines tend to be slightly better. But at any rate, that is what we are working toward. We could consider speed bumps or ripple pads, but unfortunately ripple pads would be detrimental to the environment, to wildlife, as well as to residents because of the noise created by those. And speed bumps, well, we all know how popular those are, but they are, I believe the statistic was 85% effective, although I personally would want to see speed bumps if they could be avoided. So we're not advocating speed bumps. We are advocating for a sensor-activated light, which would help reduce the potential for accidents at this intersection. As I said, I've lived in this neighborhood for 21 years, and I've know people who've been there for 40-some years, and one of whom is Jan Loswell, who is not able to attend this meeting, but wanted me to mention the fact that her husband was in an accident turning left onto North Walnut Street and has suffered permanent injuries from that accident. And again, when you're pulling out of this intersection, it is not necessarily possible to notice that there's traffic coming because they're coming at such a high speed. You look both directions and there's nothing coming, and you pull out, and as soon as you do, they're right on you. And we have 140 to 50 signatures of people, especially from the west side of Blue Ridge, who use this intersection, who will attest to this fact. And I hope that we have some present as well. But we are also asking that a dedicated turn lane be added to the northbound as a shared right turn lane and bicycle lane. This is actually being used as a turn lane now, which is both questionable and possibly dangerous, because I've seen residents using that bike lane, which is illegal to drive in a bike lane for an extended period of time, all the way from the gas station on North Walnut Street. And they do that because they are absolutely terrified that they're going to get rear-ended when they're trying to make a right turn into our neighborhood. And again, it's all about speeds and recklessness. And people have been, if you're trying to make a left turn from North Walnut into Blue Ridge, and there are people coming at you from behind at 50, 55 miles an hour, and I think it's a 40-mile-per-hour zone, and then they start honking at you. That is quite unnerving for anyone. And we have several of our residents who are just, I'm going to say it, terrified to use this intersection because it is simply not safe. I know people who said that they will not let their children drive using that intersection because they don't feel that it's safe. They make them drive a mile out of their way to go to the light on the bypass in Dunn Street. So basically what we're asking to further this to make this a safer intersection. I mean, a light is not going to be an absolute perfect thing, but it is certainly going to be the best solution that we have at hand, because again, speed bumps and ripples just are not going to be effective here. So we're asking for the sensor-activated stoplight and the other 2 dedicated turn lanes, the right turn lane off of North Walnut heading north, and another dedicated left turn lane into the chiropractic office, which is just north of the visitor center. We do recognize the city's efforts by adding the 2 central lane turn lanes from heading south on North Walnut and heading north on North Walnut into the visitor center and into Blue Ridge. But we feel that those are insufficient to actually address the full nature of the situation.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. Does that complete your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, let's open it up to questions from Commissioner. Well, actually, first we should hear a response from staff.
Actually, you might kick this one off to Andrew Seaborg.
Andrew Seaborg, city engineer. Just a quick recap again. This is a transportation inquiry. Like the last one, you have the 3 options. One are to suggest no further action is necessary at this time. You can request additional study information or request that a future petition come before you. I think at a meeting or 2 ago, gave an update just on the ongoing project that's in the works. That, as was just referenced, is incorporating some of the specific changes that the neighborhood has sought. As a part of their initial inquiry to the Traffic Commission, staff did complete what we would typically do when somebody's asking for a signalized intersection, is to conduct a warrant analysis. As I think I mentioned previously, that intersection is not warranted for a signal. Some of the key criteria we looked at, they did mention crashes. That is one potential metric. Another is traffic volumes. And so this is a location where the intersecting roads just don't meet the traffic volume thresholds that are typically suggested for prioritizing a signal. What else? We are implementing additional changes, as was mentioned, adding the left turn lanes into the neighborhood and to the visitor center. As a part of that, we're removing one of the uphill climbing lanes, expecting that some of these changes will help mitigate some of the greatest speeding concerns or that inconsistency with having that passing lane. So we've collected before data. We're certainly planning on collecting after data like we do with all of our projects, just to track the impact on speeds in this area. So it's really too premature, but would expect to see some decrease in those top end speeds as a result of the project. And I might be missing anything, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the commission has.
Okay, let's open the floor to questions on TCI 2511. Mr. Kopic.
Andrew, he mentioned sight distance. Have you guys looked at the sight distance in there to see what that entails?
Yeah, we've looked at the sight distance. I don't have that information in front of me, but that the sufficient sight distance is met to meet the minimum industry standards. It doesn't mean that it isn't limited somewhat by certain features. That is the case in many locations, but wasn't to the point of sometimes we might use that to justify, yes, a signal or a stop sign or other things should be, but that it wasn't met here.
Mr. Drummy.
I may have a few questions, but is it the staff's perspective that speed is an issue in that area?
Yeah, I think in the report it did mention that people do speed on the street and some of the very high-end speeds. So recognize there is a speeding issue, hoping that the project that's underway will help mitigate some of that. To what extent, it's hard to say. And I also want to mention, they mentioned crash data. One of my staff just showed me there are some crashes that are at this intersection. I think the pattern that we have seen so far, or in the most recent few years, were all rear-end type crashes. And so just wanting to note that if we were to install a traffic signal, I would actually expect to see more rear-end crashes. We didn't see angle or turning crashes, at least in the the years we were looking at, which might be more related to a traffic signal being warranted.
A second question is, has it ever, and I realize the neighborhood may not want this, but has it ever been considered to make that only a right turn only entry exit for that neighborhood? Because my understanding is there is a rear way to exit that neighborhood, correct?
Yeah, there is a way you could access through Dunn Street. So there are alternative routes that I'm sure some residents are currently using if they're feeling uncomfortable going out to Walnut Street, especially certain times. So that is an option, that instead of left turn lanes, we could put treatments in the center of the road to make left turns impossible.
I guess only one further comment. I wish we had another tool like speed cameras to slow people down, but I know we don't have that option. But what about enforcement? Is that something that we try to coordinate or use?
Yeah. I think certainly, as I haven't had recent conversations with our police department, but I know in the past they did speed enforcement as they could and as their resources were allowed, but I know their staffing is going up, so hoping that is more of a tool. I know a frequent request at the Traffic Commission in the past was, boy, if the state just let us do speed enforcement, but that is just not currently allowed. Though I do want to say there are some trials underway, pilot programs that NDOT's implementing that we're hopeful are successful and can become wider spread.
Mr. Strasburg.
Yes, you're following the MU-TCD guidance here. Part of that guidance has a section 4C1A. It does give jurisdictions some latitude to develop their own warrants and guidelines. What are some sorts of things which the city would take into account to deviate from the normal MU-TCD guidance?
Yeah, that's a good question. Truth of the matter is we don't install too many new traffic signals in the city. It's more likely we're thinking in that context as we're thinking about stop signs. So we were talking about sight distance was an earlier question. That would be a factor, or potential more vulnerable road user crossings. Those could be a factor. If there was a bus stop, that kind of thing nearby. Those might be other considerations.
You mentioned rear-end crashes, that they might actually increase if we put in a signalized intersection?
Yeah, I think if you're introducing the requirement at times when a red light appears on Walnut Street, you're just introducing more chance that somebody sees it and somebody doesn't, and so that's generally what I would expect as we install new signals. There's more likely to be rear-end crashes.
Thank you. I have a second question or observation. The city has been moving towards more objective, data-driven planning, particularly when it comes to this sort of project. The city has developed a Safe Streets for All priority corridor map, and includes this section of road on it. And I believe it's has a priority of medium-low. So there's other high critical areas. And as part of moving towards this objective system, we have people, organizations who are good at advocating for themselves, but this work comes out of a city goal to improve equity. Not everyone knows the system or how the system works, but all residents here deserve to be safe, whether they know how to advocate or to come, how to get things done. And that's partly what the Safe Streets for All priority map does. It's not a map of 3 neighborhoods who showed up. It's a map of the whole city. So we have limited funds to spend too. So could it be the case that a project could both have merit, some mitigations could improve safety, but in the scheme of the whole city, it might not be where we want to spend money this year?
I think that's an excellent question, and the honest answer is yes. Like, there is a chance that like, there's a scenario we could say a traffic signal is a good idea here. That's not something I'm saying at this point, but we could say that. But I would also say, but there are other locations that are also good ideas that might have greater need. There are locations that maybe do meet these warrants, and so we would just, so then it's also a prioritization exercise. So even if this was deemed desired, I would say this is not near the top, and that reference to the safety action plan is an excellent one.
I've spent a lot of time looking at crash data at intersections, and one thing I noticed in my analysis, the city ran their own analysis, was a lot of the intersections that have the highest rates of crashes for pedestrians, cyclists, and overall are signalized. Do you agree in the city's analysis was the same?
I just intuitively, that makes sense to me, that they're signalized, but partly that's because there's also where the most conflicts exist. It might not be because of a signal, but it's where there's a lot of, that relationship's hard to say.
Yeah, thank you, that's all.
Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you. I think the conversion to one lane all the way up from Old 37 southbound will dramatically help some of the speeding challenges. I'm sure, like most folks, I've definitely witnessed plenty of people accelerating to 60 plus to make a pass, kind of cresting that hill. So I'm hopeful that that will help a lot, along with some of the other changes that are planned. Obviously, as you mentioned, we're going to measure speeds post-conversion and get data on that, which is also helpful, and I appreciate that we're taking a data-driven approach. My question is, should that prove sort of not enough, are there more like traffic calming type measures for, let's say, a little bit north of the entrance to Blue Ridge that could be considered? I know the speed limit, I think, is 45, but I'm thinking of the East Morris Pike speed hump, for instance, near the entrance to Hyde Park, just right by Olcott, that is not, it's not a speed bump you slow down to 10 miles an hour to go over. It's like 30, I think 30 is the speed limit there, but even at 35, probably, like, it's not, onerous. Are there treatments like that that would apply to this speed limit that could be considered in the future should this conversion not be adequate in reducing speeds to expected, allowances and compliance?
Yeah, and another great question. I think the answer is other things could be explored. I know another example of a treatment that we're currently testing are the radar speed feedback signs. We have a couple just to see what are the long-term effective results of those. That's another potential tool. The interesting part is, even if we want to, then it goes back to the prior question of, is this the corridor to prioritize compared to others? Maybe, but we haven't got to that point yet.
And is it your opinion that we should, before considering an additional step like that from staff perspective, we should probably get more data first?
I think at this point, that's what my suggestion would be, is to complete the project that's under construction, after some period of time, collect some data and see what the impact of it has been, and share that data.
Thank you.
I'll take a turn. Do we know if traffic speeds have increased since I-69 was opened?
I don't have an answer to that question.
Because I note that the most recent traffic volume counts don't have dates attached to them. So I wondered if that was just an oversight, or that we don't know what the date is there.
We could go back to check it. I would also say that there may be some variability, but the nature of the design of the road hasn't changed or wasn't different, so I wouldn't expect to see a different number.
But I'll also note that all 4 of these traffic counts are south of the bypass, the ones on Walnut Street. And I would really like a traffic count north of the bypass. I'm a little surprised that there hasn't been one taken on this significant road.
I don't know if that's correct. So you're saying...
I just Googled them. 2002 North Walnut, 2024 North Walnut.
Those are years, I think.
Oh.
I could see what, sorry for that confusion.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, they literally listed here like their addresses. So I'm like, what are you measuring RIVE for? All right. Okay. We're going to talk about your memos. Okay. When they talk about a sensor-activated light, are they saying that, and I want to open up, I want to make sure that Mr. Ferguson knows that he can answer this question too, does that mean that it'll only trigger if there's traffic coming out of Blue Ridge to trigger the light?
That why it would be out of Blue Ridge and or the visitor center.
Okay, right, no, I hear that. I'm just asking, is this a thing, Mr. Seaborg?
I think I would expect an intersection, if it was signalized, to have detection and to respond as vehicles are
But
detected.
it wouldn't automatically cycle, it would only cycle if it was, because the traffic is so low on Blue Ridge.
That's a fair question. I don't know if I'm comfortable saying definitively yes or no. Sometimes we might want it to stop to help with speeds, or in case it isn't correctly detecting somebody or some vehicle that wasn't there. So it may still cycle through even if it's not detected.
So there may be benefits to a light regardless of Blue Ridge, simply for although it wouldn't be regardless, but there may be some benefit to a light in that it might be able to control speeds, although it may not be your preferred method.
Yeah, I guess maybe, I've heard some cities have experimented with traffic signals to intentionally just rest in red for the purpose of stopping people and slowing traffic, very experimentally. So that's a possibility. But truly, if the purpose was traffic calming, I think I would want to entertain an earlier question we had about TAP, is a signal or a roundabout or other alternative treatment
Right.
maybe more better?
Next question is, as I was listening to this presentation, I was thinking about the Hawk signal on North Dunn Street near the stadium. What was the volume of pedestrians? Do you have any sense of the volume of pedestrians using it? What was the volume of pedestrians that called for the Hawk signal there?
You know, I don't know if, usually when there's a pedestrian demand thing like that, it's harder to predict how much usage there will be. So I don't know if we had that number, but a device like that does have warrants, just like a vehicular signal.
Right.
And I want to say at least there's some thresholds of at least 20 per hour, but it depends on a number of factors.
Okay, because like I have an interest in comparing the potential cases for that signal and this intersection. What I suspect is may be the case, there's maybe 1,000 people a day using the Hawk signal. You know, like it doesn't change anything you said about trying other measures first, just that I feel like that would be a good set of data to have to compare situations. So I don't know. I mean, does that data exist? Are there counts that exist for that signal?
I could look into that.
Okay.
I think it also gets into, again, like the prioritization exercise, and is a pedestrian equal to a vehicle, or there's just a lot of interesting questions within that.
Agreed. I mean, I'm trying to be agnostic about it,
Yeah.
simply saying that I feel like I don't necessarily want to dismiss this inquiry out of hand simply because it's only, it's non-pedestrian.
Sure.
So.
Sure.
I have other questions, but I want to open up to a second round to follow-up questions from any member. Does anybody else have questions? Ms. Davis.
What's the timeline for the current work that's scheduled for the turn lanes and all that?
I can get that to you in a minute. I've got a...
Okay, if you want, I've got a question for Mr. Ferguson while we're waiting for him to answer that. Mr. Ferguson?
Yes.
Okay. It's been pointed out that Blue Ridge is not a cul-de-sac, that this is not the only way in and out of the intersection. Can you talk a little bit about the Dunn Street connection to Blue Ridge and how the neighborhood uses that now? Do people use that as an alternative route?
There are those who will only use that simply because they do not feel safe using the North Walnut Street exit. It adds, I'm not exactly sure the exact distance, but it's like a mile and a half or something. Anywhere from, I don't know, I never really timed it. But it does add some time to exiting
Sure.
the addition, as well as it's kind of a roundabout way to get to where we want to get. If we want to get to Walnut Street, having to drive all the way to Dunn and then all the way down, 2 or 3 blocks more on the bypass to get to North Walnut, which is, by the way, protected by a stoplight. It makes it highly inconvenient, but yeah, people do it, and I do it myself, especially right now since they're actually working on the project. But I did want to also add that there are only the 2 turn lanes that are planned. The other 2 have not seemed to be been addressed by the new work that's going on there as well. But yes, no, people use the bypass on Dunn. Again, it's inconvenient, and it's not. Most people don't feel that that's a reasonable thing to have to do when you live right next door to the North Walnut exit. And I would also address that the right only would only defeat the entire purpose, because then people would have to drive north to Old 37, then to Dunn, and then down. So.
Got it. Okay, well, thank you for that answer. I'm going to defer to Ms. Davis, who had a question outstanding.
Yeah, the status, early November, it should be complete, so next couple weeks.
Further questions?
Mr. Seaboard, is it true that NDOT in the last couple of years added a stoplight at Dunn and the bypass?
They...
Or as a turn signal is what I'm thinking.
Did they add a turn lane or?
No, a turn lane.
I'm thinking of a.
Yeah, I don't know if they added a turn lane.
Turn signal.
Turn signal, sorry, that's what it was. Yeah, I think maybe Mr. Ferguson could confirm, but did the
yes, there is a left turn signal onto the bypass, but that is heading in the opposite direction of Walnut Street.
But that was added in the last year or 2, I believe, a turn signal?
No, I don't know.
No? Okay.
I
think it was.
Seem to recall it's been there for a while.
Okay, thank you.
Exact years.
Any further questions from commissioners before we go to public comment on this inquiry? Am I right?
I have
Mr. Drummond, go ahead.
For Mr. Seaboard, if this neighborhood were to be developed today, would it likely have access directly to Old State Road 37?
I would have to look at a map to see, but certainly as new developments come forward, as many connections as possible to the network is desired.
Seeing no, oh, wait a minute, I had one more question. Mr. Seaboard, would you be able to name off the top of your head an intersection anywhere in the city that you know for sure is more in need of a signal right now than this intersection?
I'm hesitant to say, but also...
as an example of what is more outstanding.
17th and Eagleson.
17th and Eagleson, okay, this is, okay. Yeah, why, can you tell us a little bit more about that intersection?
The traffic volumes meet the signal warrants, and there are a pattern of crashes that could be addressed with a traffic signal.
Very good, thank you. Okay, with that, you have another question? Okay. Let's go to public comment on TCI 2511. If you are in the room and would like to speak to the issue, please come to the podium, sign your name. If you are on Zoom, you may use the raise hand feature to be called on to speak. Again, we do not engage in direct dialogue. Questions must be rhetorical. All remarks must remain respectful. If a commissioner wishes to take up a rhetorical question asked, they may do so after public comment period is over. If you'd like to speak, please come to the podium, sign in, and state your name. and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Carol Canfield. I'm a 21-year resident of Blue Ridge, and I'm very glad that this is finally coming to the fore because I've been scared out of my wits trying to get out of my neighborhood. You try to get out, turning left, and everything's clear, and as soon as you're on the road, you've got somebody on your tail. It's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit that's posted at the bottom of the hill, which I think is just excessive for the amount of traffic on that road and for the neighborhood and the businesses along there. Tap Road has a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Compare those two. This is a major entrance into the north side of the city. We have been trying to do something about this since I was on the board 20 years ago. And I'm just thrilled that it's finally getting some serious consideration. We need a stoplight there, especially when it's raining. You try to turn out from our addition, and you have to get some traction. And I drive a pickup truck, so I don't have a lot of rear wheel traction. And as soon as I'm out there, there's somebody on my tail. And what James said about turning right, heading north into our addition, we do get honked at all the time. And, you know, I don't want to be rear-ended there. This just needs to happen. We have tried to get those things that tell you what your speed is and compared to what the speed limit is. We've not been able to get that. We've tried to get police to be sitting at the Visitors Bureau or wherever. We've not been able to get that. This is the first serious consideration we've had, and I've been there for 20 years. We need this signal. And as far as going out to Dunn Street, I don't know if you've driven down Dunn Street, but it's very narrow and it's very hilly. And again, you take your life in your hands when you're turning right and people are coming up over the hill. We've got to do something about this. People's lives are at stake. Please consider doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment? Do we have anybody online who's raised their hand, Mr. Roebling?
I don't have anyone who's raised their hand yet, but if you are online and would like to speak, please raise your hand.
We have another speaker in the chamber. Please sign in and state your name.
Hello, my name is Carrie Floyd. My husband Kevin and I live in Blue Ridge neighborhood, and we are concerned over the safety of the intersection at North Walnut Street and East Blue Ridge Drive. I'd like to point out that you cannot see the turn into Blue Ridge until you're almost upon it. Walnut Street is heavily traveled and the cars are going very fast. This makes turning into Walnut Street from Blue Ridge Drive dangerous, especially when making left turns. Kevin and I are cyclists. We use the existing bike lanes on Walnut. It's challenging and scary to make a left turn onto Walnut Street going across 2 lanes of traffic. I don't see how the lane changes that have been made will ameliorate this situation. I hope you will all consider putting in a traffic light to make this intersection safe. You're on a bicycle. The sight lane is really difficult to see cars coming, but you wait until you think you're ready, and a lot of times cars are coming at us before we can get across 2 lanes of so please take that into consideration. If there's cycles, you know, bicycle lanes on both sides of Walnut, people do use those.
Thank you for your comments. Next up in chambers. Is there anyone online, Mr. Roebling, who has raised their hand?
I have James Ferguson asking to be unmuted, so I will unmute him, although I will point out that he is the original inquirer.
Yeah,
so
he's the person making the presentation.
I'll just ask him to unmute in case there's a second person, just to confirm.
Mr. Ferguson, are you speaking for yourself, or is there someone else on your call who?
Well, yeah, I'm just wanted to address a couple things. I'm speaking
sir,
for myself.
Sir, sir, as the petitioner, you'll get that chance after public comment is over, because you've already presented, and we can ask you questions afterwards. Okay. Okay?
That's fine.
Thank you.
All right.
Let's continue in chambers, please.
Yes, my name is Kevin Floyd, and yeah, being on a bicycle, there is bike lanes on Walnut, so it's designed for bicycles. It's extremely difficult to turn out onto Walnut, and I've heard two people say that the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. It's not. It's 40 miles an hour, but it should be lower than that. And the 40 mile an hour sign is, I don't think most people see it, so they assume it's 45 miles an hour. It goes to 40 miles an hour before you get to the Blue Ridge. Another thing I point out is that you can't see the intersection from Walnut, especially going southbound. I myself look for the flagpoles at the visitor center because you can't see that intersection at all. There's no indication. There's no sign that there's an intersection there. So cars don't know you're going to be pulling out in front of them. So there's other things that could be done to make it safer. Main thing, get the traffic slowed and let people know that there's going to be traffic coming out there so they're not surprised by a car pulling out. And that's it.
Thank you for your comments. Are there any commenters online? None online. Any other members of the public in chambers who'd like to speak to TCI 2511? Seeing none, we'll come back to the commission for follow-up questions. Are there any follow-up questions from commissioners? To my left? To my right? Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you. Follow up on speed. The staff memo did mention that the speed limit was 45 miles an hour at that portion of North Walnut, which is why where I was getting the information, I guess, but I'm curious to clarify that point. And then as a follow-up, I'm also curious where else in the city, other than maybe state highways, we have speed limits of 40 or higher, or especially 45 or higher. As I reflect on it, and the point made by Ms. Canfield, it does seem rather excessive relative to other streets of a similar character.
I can answer the first part. That was an error on my part. It's 45 north of Blue Ridge, just like Mr. Floyd said, and then it is 40 south. That was an omission on my part, but that is correct.
Is that roughly the point at which it changes, right about the neighborhood entrance?
Yes, roughly right there.
Okay. And on the second point, any response related to why 40 miles an hour here, or even 45? I guess I understand some justification once you're sort of leaving the city for maybe 45, but I guess even the placement of it and when that transitions. But yeah, just wondering about relative to other streets. Do we have other 40 mile an hour streets around the city?
Yeah, I'm just looking at our Title 15 table. There are a few 40 mile an hour streets. This is the only stretch that has a 45, so it's a rarity. But like I mentioned in the fatal crash report, Bloomfield Road has a 40 mile an hour speed limit. So there's a few others like it, but most of our roads are 30 or less.
The Bloomfield's a state highway, is it not?
It transitions to one, but there are sections within the city's inventory that's 40.
And do we control the speed limit? It's a bit tangential. Even on state-owned highways that are within city limits, or no?
No, just on our city-maintained roads.
Okay, though that's not the case here. Okay, thank you.
I just want to get a clarification. This was, there was a member of the public who pointed out that this is Old State Road 37. Does Old Saybrook 37 mean that it's no longer in NDOT's inventory of state highways?
I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it, but at one point it was a state highway. At this point, it is a city-maintained road.
Okay, but it is a city-owned, city-maintained road now?
Correct.
And we don't think of ourselves as having highways in the city. We have streets and roads, and the state has highways, right?
Getting into definitions, but yes, we
Sure,
try to design
okay.
our roads different. Yeah.
But having said that, this road was designed and eventually to be a highway, right? And it preceded all the things around it, the neighborhood, the buildings on either side of it. Are we actively trying to tame this road to bring it down from a highway into more of a city street, like over time, over decades?
I think the answer is yes. That's a part of the project that we're wrapping up, are implementing changes to, it was a maintenance-focused project, but as we're doing these projects, we're trying to improve them as much as possible with the spirit of the funds. So yeah, by removing that uphill lane, we're really transitioning from a traditional highway design more to a city design.
Okay, thank you. Further questions before we go to debate?
Question.
Mr. Drummy.
If we're trying to tame the road, was it considered, was there any consideration given during the current project to lower the speed limit from 40 to 45 to something less?
That was not a serious consideration. I think at this point, the measured speeds are so great, we're just trying to take that incremental step of doing things that we think will promote lower speeds. We'll reassess after completion, and maybe depending that, we can go further.
So, and we're just acknowledging no one cares what the speed limit signs say. We need to do something different to try to slow them down.
Yeah, and my job would be so much easier if people just read a sign and followed it.
Understood.
Mr. Flaherty.
Thank you. One more question related to some of the public comment about cycling specifically in and out of the neighborhood. It seems to me that, so one way to address that with busier, faster streets, I'm thinking of Allen Street as it crosses South Walnut, for instance, is a pedestrian island of some kind that bicyclists can also use. Those tend to prohibit left turns into a place off the main road. Which might be desirable here if we're getting into the neighborhood from north, southbound on North Walnut. But it seems to me that I guess it's the visitor center across the street that has a separate entrance point that is closer to the building. There's sort of like this extra, I don't know the history of it. Maybe there was other businesses there. Like, it seems to me like you could probably prevent make a pedestrian island that would prevent left turns into the visitor center as currently planned, and actually put a pedestrian island or make that conversion later. And that may dramatically increase safety for cyclists in particular who are exiting Blue Ridge. Obviously, like all things, that entails expense. There are trade-offs. We have lots of needs in the city, but still just wondering, has that been considered? Is my assumption about the viability of that sound?
Yeah, I think the truth, we didn't seriously consider bicyclist crossing of this intersection. I appreciated the comment too. Just when we assess sight distance, it is based on, we're assuming vehicles are pulling out and they can accelerate much quicker. So the limitations of sight distance for a cyclist would be different and more challenging. So that's a really fair concern. Then it gets more to prioritization and impacts and design. I think one of the things with the design that's being built right now is that there are at least no longer through lanes. There will be, even though it's not a refuge, there's turn lanes that are going to more likely and frequently be used or occupied. I'm not saying that'll be a desirable space to be, but it will be better than it was. We could always remove those and create a more significant refuge, but then we're prohibiting a left turn movement that I think the same neighborhood's asking for. So it's a tool, it's an option that could be looked at more in the future, for sure.
Thank you.
With that, we'll now go to debate. Again, we have three options here. We can recommend that, I've already lost my memo. We can recommend no action. Thank you. We can request additional study or information, or request that a petition addressing the issue be prepared by staff and brought before us. So please keep those in mind as you make final comments on this inquiry. Are there any final comments, or comments rather, for debate on this issue? To my left, Mr. Kopic, please use the mic.
Well, I know that.
Closer.
I know that when state highways relinquished those roads to the city had to take them in when I was there many, many years ago. And it usually just stayed with the speed limit that was posted for the state highway. So I think maybe one of the things we could look at is, what if we look at maybe changing the speed limit to lowering it to something less than 40 miles an hour in there. I know 46 through Ellisville, they just reduced the speed limit in there from 45 to 35. The state highway did that themselves. So maybe that could be one of our options, to have further look at what happens when we get the new design or plan is completed, and maybe look at reducing the speeds.
Thank you, Mr. Kopic. Other members with comments? Mr. Flaherty?
Sure. I appreciate all the advocacy that folks from the neighborhood have brought, and I appreciated the point Mr. Stossberg made that some aspects of this may well have merit, but not be something that we decide to move forward with at this time on the basis of opportunity, cost, and prioritization, aimed at an objective and equitable approach to addressing the most significant safety challenges in the city. I think on top of that, I generally have fairly strong deference for staff with respect to engineering expertise on warrants for things like signals, et cetera, and whether or not they, in particular, may have unintended consequences, including safety, worsening safety, which may well be the case here. So for that reason, I'm not in favor, I guess, of at least moving forward. I'm not in favor of a petition coming to do most of the things that the neighborhood was asking for. I know there was kind of a list, and that given that we are in the midst of finalizing a conversion that should address some of the worst aspects of this issue, in particular the speeding, especially from folks from the north headed southbound, my inclination would be to wait and get more data and assess. I think the speed, echoing the same point about the speed limit signs, I think that, I don't know if we need to wait on more data to consider that, but I do wonder if that's another good option. Similarly, I think there's some other lower cost options that could address potential for traffic calming if even speed limits didn't have have the intended effect, et cetera. So maybe there are things that are, again, we wait, we learn more from the updates, and then there are some additional options that are at least somewhat low barrier, relatively speaking, compared to a traffic signal and some of the other things that have been discussed. So I think that's where I sit on it currently. Thank you.
Further thoughts from members? Anybody? Mr. Drummy?
I agree with staff's recommendation of I think we should see how the current work impacts speed. I would be in favor if it were ever an issue for me to decide to might as well lower the speed limits anyway. I mean, even if 10% of the people, with the lane and reduction from 2 to 1, if one person drives the speed limit, everybody behind them is going to be driving the speed limit too. So I hope we don't live in a world where those things don't matter. And if there is ever enforcement, obviously getting a ticket going 25 miles an hour over the speed limit is way worse than going 10 over. But I do think I would like to see how the current renovations play out and see how that impacts the livability of the area and go from there.
Thank you. Further comments from members? On my left, anybody? On my right? Okay, I want to say one thing. I was wrong about the old name of this road, it was never Old State Road 37. That runs through Lower Cascades. It crosses this road at that light further on. This road on Google Maps is still listed both as Walnut Street and State Road 37, North State Road 37 Business. There you go. So that definitely underscores its lineage, if you'll forgive the term, as a highway. It was designed as a highway. It was meant to move cars fast in and out of town, and all the businesses and neighborhoods that cropped up did so after the road was created. This was the main way in and out of town, or Old 37 was. Of course, it is still a main way in and out of town. It's still faster for many people to take North State Road 37 Business than to go all the way out to 69. So part of me is unsympathetic to the problem that Blue Ridge faces because it's a highway, and I think they knew that when they moved in. On the other hand, I get it. I think that they have more than a point. A light would work. A light would solve the problem to the satisfaction of the neighbors. But as for all the things that other people have said, the equity concerns, I mean, it's not the highest priority. There is another way in and out of the neighborhood. It would be inconvenient, but that maybe isn't enough to justify what the neighborhood is proposing. I don't think we have enough information. I definitely would like more information, regardless of whether it would elevate to a petition. I think that I would move to ask for traffic count at this, well, okay, I got it. I read it wrong. I'm still a little embarrassed about that. But I would like the counts of the hawk signal at Dunn, north of 17th Street. I would, I also want to see what happens with the already happening improvements to the area, as modest as they are compared to what the neighborhood has asked for. So I'm kind of ambivalent. I wouldn't entirely rule out a light, but another thing I think it would be useful to know is what is the actual cost? What would the actual cost be to make all the changes that the neighborhood has requested? I think just as an exercise for any neighborhood, it would be useful to say that the light that Blue Ridge requested would cost X dollars, and that's generally how much it costs to install a light. If we were to instead do some kind of a traffic circle there, what would that cost? Like, this is the first time we're taking inquiries like this, and this is information that will be useful to any neighborhood coming with a request as significant as this. So I would make a recommendation for more information, even if I don't think that any further action should come from it. That's my take. Still welcoming comment and feedback from other commissioners. Seeing none, we need a motion. I can't make it because I'm the chair.
Clarifying question. Do we need a motion to take no action? Or?
Yeah, we need to dispose of this with some kind of affirmative statement in any, either we're taking no action, asking for information, or asking for a petition to be made.
Got it, thank you.
Anyone who wants to make a motion?
I move that no further action is warranted at this time.
Need a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Without any further ado, let's have a roll call vote on the motion to take no further action.
Drummy.
Yes.
Flaherty.
Yes.
Davis.
No.
Stossberg.
Yes.
Kopic.
Yes.
Connell.
Yes.
Bolin.
No. All right, that by my count is a 5-2 vote in favor of no further action. I want to thank the petitioner and staff for the presentation and the question and answer period. Let's go now to discussion of topics not on the docket. Are there any items that commissioners would like to raise as, no, there's just 2 items on the agenda right now. Any items that members would like to discuss without presentation? On my right? On my left? I did have a couple of follow-up questions for staff based on last meeting. Mr. Flaherty asked a question last meeting about who has ultimate jurisdiction on transportation matters, whether it's purely administrative or whether council has a say. And we talked about having city legal present here. Do we have any update on this request?
Yeah, Andrew Seabour, city engineer. About a week and a half ago, I had a meeting with city legal on this general question. At that time, we were basically finalizing the packet for today's meeting, so they were not prepared for certainly this meeting. I'm not sure about next meeting, but it's something they're working on. And per my discussion, I understand they're in dialogue with the council staff as well on that question. So I don't have a significant update, but just know that conversation is happening and hope at some point to have them here when they're able to share an update.
Okay, so you're saying that they're not sure, they're still working on it?
I think they're actively working on the legal questions and in dialogue with council staff and their opinions of those questions too.
That was the other question was, is council staff involved in that?
That's my understanding.
Okay. Very good, thank you. So thank you. You might want to stay up here, but I'm not sure. Secondly, Mr. Flaherty asked a question about counts of bicycle traffic on the 7 line. Do we have any updates on that?
Yeah, we have conducted counts on the 7 line. It was maybe already a couple weeks ago, but we have not had a time to actually summarize and digest those counts. I can say I've been told that the counts are less than they were, but how much and the details of those, I don't have that right now.
The fact that you're counting means that we can hope for a report at some point in the near future.
That's fair.
Perhaps at the next month's meeting?
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah, Mr. Flaherty.
So, Mr. Seabour, thank you. You did send an email to me as well about that question, and part of it was related to what was a permanent bike counter. You mentioned at our previous meeting that it was broken and not easily fixed. In particular, you said the permanent bike counter stopped collecting data in March 2024. The fix is not simple. Engineering staff is working with P&T staff to think about potential future investments in equipment like this, and you're actively doing tube counts in the bike lane where we have prior count data that we can compare. I think that's what you were just referencing.
Yep.
The data and comparisons will have limitations, but will be something that can be reviewed. Can you speak any more to what you mean by the data and comparisons will have limitations? Is that a function of the type of count or something like that? And then also, it sounds like no fix for the permanent bike counter is anticipated at this time. Is that right?
It's my understanding the permanent bike counter is just a technology that is no longer functional. We got its use out of it. We have other ones like it that are still collecting data, but I don't think it's not like a simple battery replacement, so it's a bigger effort. And then trying to remember exactly what I said and what I was thinking at the time, but just the limitation count, the tube counts are, that's collecting a 2-day period count compared to a permanent counter that's collecting it. It depends when was the football game, who's in town. There's just variation in weather. So that's a limitation. And then just there's a lot of outside factors between stop signs, the Poplars redevelopment project, there's a lot of things, but we'll share the data.
And so are tube counts quite time limited, like you only put them out for a certain number of days or something?
Yeah, we typically put them out for at least 2 full, typically midweek days. Okay. I can't remember how long these were out, so it's compared to a permanent counter that's 24/7.
Quite different. Thank you.
Yep.
The last thing I had was I need clarification on parking. So I made a half-hearted attempt to follow up when Michelle Wall contacted me about setting up a meeting, as we talked about last meeting, to discuss the parking report that they solicited.
Yeah.
But by the time I had gotten back to her, she said that that decision to schedule that meeting was out of her hands and back in commission staff's hands. So can somebody clarify where we are with that?
Yeah, I've been in communication with Michelle. She's on a vacation today, as is the consultant. Otherwise, they probably would be here today, but they just couldn't. My hope, I don't yet have 100% certainty, but my hope is that at your next meeting, the first hour of it will be dedicated to discussion about the parking study in one of the planning session type formats. So more to come, but that is, I think, what is likely to be expected.
And this will be an opportunity for them to gather input from the commission, not simply a report of what they've already done.
Yeah,
Is that
it's more of a, I'll let Ryan explain the process.
Yeah, well, your question hit it right on the head. That is the goal of a planning session, is
Good.
to help craft whatever we're looking at, in this case, the parking study.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate hearing that. The last thing I would ask would be sort of highlight of potential future items that staff is planning to put on the docket for next meeting.
I think
If you know already what
I'm going by memory, but I know a big one on the next one we're hoping is that parking study discussion.
Right.
And then I think another one that may be of interest is likely an update on the 10th Street corridor study. Those are two that are likely next month. And then likely come early next year is likely, I'll hand it over to Ryan to confirm, but College and Walnut will be another one, but probably early next year. But there's others. Those are some big ones off the top of my head.
Do you expect any cases?
Probably.
Okay, just curious. All right, with that, we go now to general public comment on items not on the docket. Is there any, Mr. Rowe?
Sorry, I do have a quick, I should have maybe done it earlier, but this one's really quick. College and Walnut corridor study, there will be 2 public meetings, and you're encouraged to come to one or both of those. They are open house format. We'll have 2 design alternatives for the public to come in, look at, and make some comments on, and help us guide that decision. That will be on Tuesday, October 28th, right here in this room, and then again on Thursday, the 30th. That's how numbers work. Yeah, both at 5:30, right here in this room. They'll be essentially the same meeting, so you don't have to come to both, but you're encouraged to come to either or both. And then, yes, I can confirm that 10th Street will be a petition that should be on next month's agenda. We'll also have a formal calendar for 2026. We had to wait for BPW, Plan Commission, and Park Commission to finalize their schedules.
Are we still talking about third Monday for those meetings?
That was kind of going to be our plan, but we're open to basically any day other than Wednesday.
Yeah, this is my point to tell commissioners that if you have any qualms at all about this meeting time, this is the month to think about it. I can already say that I've taken on another commitment that meets at the exact same time. I'm not sure whether I can get that body to meet at a different time. I hope that I can, but I wouldn't mind like the second week instead of the third week. But this is something that we should all think about in time for the November meeting. Any other questions or comments from members before we go to general public? Time for a general public comment on items not on the docket. If there is someone on Zoom or in the room who would like to speak to an item that we did not already discuss today, please come to the podium, sign in, state your name. You'll have 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak? Is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to speak? Please raise your hand. Keep it open another few seconds. Please raise your hand in Zoom if you'd like to speak to an item that is not on our agenda today. Going once. Going twice. That's it. All right. And with no further business, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
This meeting is adjourned.
you.